Hey there, Internet. My name's Luxander, and we don't normally sit down like this anymore. This is not really what the content has been like lately, and I am filled with regret that the reason why we are sitting down to have this conversation is because Roe v. Wade has been overturned as of today that I'm recording this. It was Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Basically, this is to say that previously under the 14th Amendment right to privacy, abortion was considered to be, you're not allowed to infringe upon the right because it's private. So that's what the reasoning was for it being legal for such a long time, for abortion rights being protected for such a long time. And it's pretty big deal that it's over now. I mean, I don't know if you can tell it all, but it's been a crying day for me today. And I wanted to get in front of the camera to talk to you a little bit about just like, it matters that we as transmasculine people, like non-binary people, trans men, it matters that we are also affected by this. Like, this is not just a loss for women. It's a loss for a lot of queer people, because there are a lot of queer people who need access to abortion. I made a video on this channel years and years and years ago about how trans people need access to abortion, and the conversations about this do affect us. And it's not good that in discussions of who has the right to control their body, that we end up centering the experience of women for the sake of political expediency. Like, yes, historically, that's the group that is being primarily targeted. However, trans men and other non-binary trans people are also affected by this. And we are also hurt by the fact that, like, this issue is not being addressed to us within the community, you know? So people always ask, like, oh, why do you need abortion access? Well, like, it ties broader into the question of why do you need access to quote unquote women's reproductive health care? Like, well, imagine being a man with a uterus who needs to have a cervical exam, and you're sitting in a women's office, like an OBGYN office. You know, people have been denied care because it's like, well, if you're in here, you're a man. If you're in the waiting room waiting, you're going to scare all of the women in here, you know? So people have already died. I think his name was Robert Eads. I'll have to double check that later, but a trans man died of ovarian cancer because no cisgender doctors would treat him. So the issue of access is intersectional, I guess, is to say. Like, people with uteruses, whether they're women or not, need access to this care. So I wanted to put that out there because people don't often think of it, and it's hurtful, and like, it's like a kick in the balls on top of everything else to have every single person who talks about this saying, like, this is a blow against women's rights. So many women are going to be affected by this because, you know, politically, you're lumping us in with women and or pretending we don't exist. So I'm making an assertion. I'm making a positive assertion that, like, trans men and other non-binary people who have uteruses need this healthcare, and it matters that our rights are gone now. You should be concerned because the fact that Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, I'm not sure which one of them is more predicated on the 14th Amendment, but the fact that this is a privacy issue, like 14th Amendment privacy issue, and the fact that so many other Supreme Court precedents have been set down operating under the same principle, like, well, if we consider abortion to be protected in the way that it is because it's about your right to privacy from the government, then also, like, whether you have the right to have sex with someone of the same gender as you in private, or whether you're allowed to have sex outside of marriage, is also considered private from the government. Like, literally, Clarence Thomas, in his part where he wrote in the opinion coming down, said that, like, it would be prudent for the Supreme Court to also go revisit other cases, such as, like, I can't remember all their names, but the case that specifically addressed same-sex relationships, like same-sex marriage, the case that addressed contraceptive rights, like your right to have birth control is at risk. Your right to have birth control pills on its own is at risk with this. And additionally, the right to interracial marriage. So like the right to have sex outside of marriage in private, the right to same-sex marriage, the right to interracial marriage, and the right to contraception are all on the table now. All on the table. Like, we're fucked, okay? I'm trying not to hammer too hard in on that, because I want to have a more hopeful approach, or at least a more actionable approach. I want to try to give you, like, this is what you need to do. You know, like, this is what you have to do now. Because I don't find it particularly useful to just languish in the futility of it, you know, to, like, yes, I know. For me, like, listen, for me, I don't really see, like, a future right now. Because, like, I have issues in my personal life going on, like, things that I considered to be permanent might not be permanent, you know? And then, like, with my country, like, it's always been, like, you know, no matter what, at the end of the day, like, I'm still gonna be in my country, you know? And now I'm like, I don't think I can stay here. So anyway, I wanted to kind of get off that. Like, yes, make an exit plan, you know, whatever you need to do to make yourself feel safe. If you need to move to Canada, if you have family who live in, like, a European country and you can immigrate, leave this country, immigrate into that country. Like, if you have a family lineage that might allow you to get citizenship in, like, Ireland or something, like, do those things, okay? I don't think it's enough necessarily to move to a liberal state. That is something you could do if you felt confident. I will say, I don't live in a liberal state, right? I live in Kansas, but I do want to remark upon really quick that Kansas has an important vote coming up. So, like, even if, like, for now, like, federally, it's, like, not protected, like, abortion is not protected, but not strictly illegal, then in Kansas, we had a Supreme Court case in our Supreme Court in the state of Kansas a few years ago that said the way that our Constitution is written right now means that people have bodily autonomy and the right to abortion within the Constitution. And now the Republicans in my state are trying to pass a constitutional amendment to make it explicitly not protected to get abortion in the state of Kansas. So, like, on August 2nd, if you live in Kansas, vote no on the constitutional amendment. That's really important. I personally don't even feel confident in that, though, because, like, even if we do manage to win that vote, which I don't think we're going to, even if we don't win that vote, there is I have every reason to believe that Republicans are going to do everything in their power, including abuse the filibuster, in order to pass sweeping anti-abortion legislation across this country. And, like, I just don't, like, this is just the reality of the situation. I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation. So you need to start making plans to protect yourself. What are you going to do if your marriage gets dissolved, right? Like, what the fuck are you going to actually do? Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to really touch on, because this is specific to abortion right this second, like everything else, yes, the domino effect has started. We're fucked. Okay. But personally protecting yourself is something that I want to get out there. Like, I think that you should be personally protecting yourself in every way that you can. If you can afford any amount of, like, self-defense training, or if you want to get, like, trained on how to use firearms or something, exercise regularly, like, make sure you're taking care of your health and eating right and all that kind of stuff. Additionally, specifically for trans men and other non-binary NBs such as myself who have uteruses, I want to specifically just talk directly at you for a second. Like, you should already know that testosterone is not birth control. If you don't know that, if you're only on testosterone and you're having sex that could result in you getting pregnant, like, you are engaging in risky behavior. You're putting yourself at risk. So if you're on testosterone, even if you think, like, oh, I never have periods when I'm on testosterone, you could still get pregnant, and you need to be on birth control. There are options for you to be on birth control that will not mess with your transition. I personally refused, for example, to go on combination birth control pills, estrogen plus progestin, like I wouldn't do it because it would reverse a lot of my transition results or something. Like that was kind of the mentality that I had about it. So you can get on the progestin only mini pill, which is you take it at the same time every day kind of thing, but careful with that because if you don't take it at the same time every day, it might not work. So more effectively than that, I would recommend getting a long-term form of birth control. I am going to be getting an IUD. I'm going to be getting a hormonal IUD. So that'll last me 5 years and I won't have to think about it. It'll hopefully stop me from having periods. That's a very effective means of going with this. You can also do a copper IUD, which is supposed to last for like 10 or 12 years. It doesn't have any hormones in it, so you'll probably still have periods. But getting on a long-term form of birth control, and like, I don't care how you get it, financially speaking. Like, if you make an appointment at a doctor you've never been to, and you know for sure that you cannot afford $1,000 to have this thing put inside you, like, just like, just have $1,000 worth of medical debt. Okay. It's worth it to have that medical debt that you're like, hopefully I'll be able to pay that off someday versus like being at risk for getting pregnant still. It's a big deal. Or get yourself like one of these like arm implants, these little like matchstick hormone release sticks that they put in your arm. Those last for 3 years, like 3 to 5 years, I guess. If you already had plans to get hysterectomy, I would consider accelerating those plans. Whether you're wanting to get a hysterectomy or some people just have the fallopian tubes removed, or some people, just want to get tubal ligation, which is when they just kind of like disconnect the fallopian tubes, but they're still inside you or whatever. Like whatever surgical plans you already had, consider accelerating them. If you were already on your way to doing that anyway, like personally for me, I'm not committed. Like I'm not ready to have a hysterectomy. So I'm getting an IUD. That's going to be the way that I protect myself in the next 5 years going forward. Like no matter what, it's just going to be there and I'm going to be safe-ish, Like something that I want to point out that I don't know is talked about very much because I'm sure that this is a bigger issue than we talk about. I'm sure that a lot of trans men have been subjected to this without wanting to discuss it. So trigger warning for rape going forward. As a trans man or a non-binary NB, you are at risk for corrective rape, especially with the environment as it is in this country right now, with all these anti-trans legislations coming through, all of this scary rhetoric, all this groomer rhetoric and shit. There is every possibility that some straight man will think that you just haven't had the right dick yet to teach you how to be a woman, and like they'll just do what they want and not consider whether you're going to get pregnant afterward. And like in the horrendous event that something like that happens to you, if you have an IUD, you are safe from pregnancy. Not going to be safe from STIs, obviously. That's going to be something else that you have to continue to manage. But like, if you think that I'm scaremongering, you need to take another minute to evaluate what's been going on around you. Because this is not a game. This is not funny. Like, we're not having a good time right now. I'm not kidding. Nothing in this video is to be taken lightly. I mean every fucking word of this. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I personally don't necessarily know what to do aside from these immediate, like, I need to protect myself right now kind of things. But like, I'm working out. Like, I've been taking walks all the time, but I'm gonna start like actually making a point to get stronger and consider looking into self-defense classes. I personally am not going to learn to be armed because I know that if I get disarmed, that's going to be a greater danger to me. So instead, I'm probably going to look into some kind of training that will like include like how to disarm, like primarily focusing on self-defense, like actual, like what to do in a situation where somebody comes at you. Like, obviously there's not much you can do if you're just at the grocery store and someone whips out a huge gun and starts like all over the, body armor costs like $600. I've looked into it. But like be very serious. Be very serious going forward. I don't know that I have a whole lot else to add here. I really just wanted to get this recorded and out here and get my feelings out before, like, there's other content that's going to keep coming out on the channel because like life is going to have to continue to go on to an extent. I'm going to still be covering other types of news on my stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. And Like, life is going to have to go on in the meantime. But absolutely still be making those plans. Consider, deleting your history in your menstrual apps. If you use your phone to keep track of those things. This is not good. It's not good. And the only thing we can do is try to protect ourselves and try to protect each other. So, consider getting to know your neighbors. Consider moving somewhere where you're going to be safer. Look into all your options. Look into every option that you have available to you. And please, for the love of God, do not vacuously say, oh, we'll make it through. People always say like, oh, Reagan's presidency wasn't great, but we made it through. Because let me tell you, hundreds and hundreds of people didn't make it through Reagan's presidency, his pregnancy, cute. And there's a lot of people who are not going to make it through this. Between the anti-trans laws, between the anti-abortion legislation, like, people are going to die of ectopic pregnancies. People are going to die from suicide because they can't access care of one kind or another. Like, I don't think I got anything else for you. Today was supposed to be an editing day for me, and instead it's going to be mostly like a oscillating between crying and raging kind of day. So that's all I got for you. Like, comment, subscribe. Consider clicking the links in the description. If you can afford to pitch me $1 on Patreon or make a one-time donation, I'm going to be using that money to get a passport and to pay for my IUD. So yeah, appreciate your support and spread the word and be safe and protect yourself. If you're cisgender, please raise awareness to this particular issue, that this affects trans men as well. And if you're a cis man especially, consider getting yourself a vasectomy.